Welcome to Digital Disruption Weekly. Yes, we changed the name of the show. I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Frank Rogers, and we are here.
Hey, good morning, Kyle. How are you?
Good morning. It is week 13.
It is already. And hey, we're kind of moving forward into not a different direction, but like an evolution. We have been kind of sitting and percolating in the pardon the disruption side of things, and now we're evolving into kind of like the grander scheme of what this show is all really about, which is the digital business experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's exactly why we're here. We have a great guest lined up for you today, talking about the next level CIO and then some. A lot of great topics lined up. We added a 7th topic, so a lot of iterations, a lot of changes here. And we couldn't do this without great partners, Frank.
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, our hybrid office sponsor is Common Desk. And if you don't know about Common Desk, they're really kind of resetting the bar in terms of what this workplace looks like. And especially when we talk about hybrid workplace, they're super smart. They're on point with everything they do. If you're really interested in it, go to go.acuerdo.io/office and ask for Amy Hughes. She actually kind of runs the 6th and Congress office here in downtown Austin. In fact, that's where we're kind of firing off from today. We're right at the very top of the Littlefield building, downtown, iconic building in Austin, Texas. Great views, but just an incredible setting that they've kind of put in place for us.
Oh, absolutely. It's a wonderful, wonderful spot, and it's nice outside today. A little overcast, but it's wonderful out there, the views here. And also, our stream sponsor today is Restream. Restream is allowing us to stream this on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn all at the same time, while also bringing in our guest. It's allowing for us to do these graphics, these cool intros, these cool videos. It's really an amazing platform. You can get started for free. Plus, if you do upgrade $10 off, it's a little something. Go.acuerdo.io/Restream. Check it out there. And then, Frank?
And then the digital business experience, what we're kind of percolating in here today, is brought to you also by inContact. They are the global leader in CX and contact center, and one of our highest value partners, and they partner with us in such a powerful way in terms of how they're helping to shape experience and shape engagement going forward in this new digital world.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go check that out, go.acuerdo.io/NIC to check more information out about them. That's all we have for that. And Frank, I'll let you introduce our guest today because you and her go way back.
Oh man, this is awesome. I'm so happy to have Carol Fineagan on board with us today. She is really first of all, she's dynamic. She's a dynamic technology leader, and she's an East Coaster. But she's living in Salt Lake City, but she wakes up every morning thinking of Bruce Springsteen, pretty much sure about that. She's a role model. She's an archetype for, changing the landscape of technology, with women driving into positions of influence, of power, of governance, just true leadership, and for the better, I might add. So welcome, Carol Fineagan, to DBX Weekly. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, guys. I'm coming to you from my lovely guest bedroom in Park City, Utah. I don't have the graphics you guys do, but I'll work on that.
Yeah, you need to work on that, Carol, for sure. Just kidding. No, we appreciate you being here. Carol, we prepped you for this. This is a fast-paced show, so we're not going to waste any more time. Here we go. So first topic, Frank.
Yeah, so in the beginning, here we are. I'm kind of going off of a Forbes article released here today, The Dawn of the Hybrid Workforce. And so this is kind of interesting. They kind of break down certain elements that are kind of like positive elements kind of coming out of COVID and what that did in terms of, changing how we approach work. So eliminating the daily work commute, lowering costs of getting to work, reduced FOMO. I thought that was interesting. Really kind of speaks to the social elements of this. But on the other side, some downside elements of it, just lack of in-person socialization, mentoring challenges, Zoom fatigue, which I think everybody has. But, really honestly, as I look at the article, there's just one thing that stands out, and that is we're at the beginning. We're on the front cycle of what this hybrid workplace, this new workplace, however you want to contextualize it. We know it's just different how we approach work, period. And another thing too is that really, it also speaks to the fact that they gave no answers in this. Like, they just called out these points. But, we know this, that like the response to it has to be strategic and not tactical. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we hear a lot about hybrid workforce. We talked about this before, early on. Last year, the phrase of the year was "you're on mute." This year, the phrase of the year so far is hybrid workforce. Like, we are just beating that term into submission until we all live it and feel it and have one office day a week or 2 office days a week, right? I feel like that's where we are. And to your point, to the article's point, we are in the beginning. Like, this is still an early adopter moment right now. To be able to embrace this, right? Common Desk, here we are. Like, let's talk about our sponsor here, Common Desk. I mean, they are a co-working space. They're in the same business as the WeWorks of the world, and they are looking at their business actually right now booming because the hybrid office is expanding right now. Yeah, the idea of not having a corner office, that paradigm is gone. Like, I no longer need the corner office permanently, but I do kind of want it on Tuesdays. That would be nice, right? Tuesday corner office would be perfect for a show like this, wouldn't it?
It would. Carol, what do you think about that?
I think my office has turned into my dining room table, and a day or two I am allowed to go into the office, but we're trying to keep the office safe for the warehouse and the workers that have to be there. So you're right, hybrid it is.
Yeah, and you bring up kind of an important issue, is the fact that like it's not just a social aspect, but there's compliance elements to it as well. There's a lot of logistical elements in terms of scheduling to make sure that customers are served. I mean, people, they talk about it. Again, you said hybrid workplace. Boom, there's the stamp, but there's a lot to unpack with it.
Yeah, Carol, and you're taking the hybrid office to the next level, right? You have a place where you're doing work, but you're also eating dinner at. I mean, if that's not a hybrid workplace, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and I'm raising kids at my house too, so it's more hybrid. Yeah.
Indeed. So next topic coming up, network value. Carol, unpack that for us.
Yeah, a lot of people found out during the pandemic that it's too late to build your network when you actually need it. So some people were flying the airplane while they were building it, and that was a huge lesson learned. The personal value of your network is for you when you're looking for a job, when you're looking for colleagues, or you're trying to sell yourself, but also your community. Your employer is looking at your network as part of their value proposition. So your value proposition becomes your employer's value proposition. So the care and feeding of a network is a constant. It has to happen every day, not just when you need it.
Wow. This is, and you talk about this, contextually in terms of this value of your network. And there's another way to kind of look at that as well. And that is like, your personal brand. We've talked about this before, Kyle, just a number of times. And this is another thing we've beaten in, but like really the lowest common denominator inside of the business, is the human. And, you got to rally around the human and your personal brand. And people always thinking about like the brand of the business. What's more important is that community. Like you said, employers are looking at your community. That's your brand amongst your community and the influence across into the company. Bigger than I think anybody ever expected, but still not adopted at the level that I think it should be.
Without a doubt, Frank. People don't buy from Acuerdo. So our business that we started, no one has come to us and said, hey, I'm going to buy from Acuerdo because Acuerdo is amazing. That's right. They buy from Frank, they buy from Kyle, they buy from Frank and Kyle. They buy from the human component. It's H to H, right? We've been talking about this for a long time. Personal brand, I think, is one of those other terms that's been beaten into submission.
Yes.
Everyone has a personal brand. Even if you're not building one, you have one by not building one. Right? Whether you focus on it or not, that's a reputation. You either have a reputation, it's either a good one, a bad one, or you don't have one at all because you haven't put any effort into it. Carol, what do you think?
Well, I think as everything's gone digital this year, your persona online has become even more important. We don't have the face-to-face right now. We have the conferencing to face. And so your personal brand is what you put out into the digital universe, and it becomes associated with your employer, your community, everyone you associate with.
Conferencing to face, not face to face. That was coined right here by Carol. Conferencing to face.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, this kind of like never in the history of mankind has anybody ever, has a market ever purchased from anyone. It's always been a person purchasing. It's always been inner relationships and being into right relationship with everyone that you serve and work with. And so when you look at about that personal network, I think one has to really kind of go inside first and explore, like, what are you all about?
Yeah, absolutely. Up next, the why of DT. Enterprises can't let the tail wag the dog. So oftentimes we think about digital transformation, DT, and we focus on the how or the what. We say, hey, we're going to migrate to Salesforce Lightning. We're going to migrate to Marketing Cloud. But we're not doing it simply for the migration's sake, are we? Or is there a bigger purpose here? Is there an end goal that is to unlock new business value? What is actually the why behind it? Carol, I wanted to toss this to you first as a CIO. I'm sure you've seen a lot of DT efforts as well. Can you talk about the why versus the how and the what? I mean, that's really important. Like, why are we doing this?
It has to, everything we put in has to solve a business problem. So you have to be clear before you even select your technology. What problem are you looking to solve? We don't put technology in we used to put it in for the fun of it, but it has to have business value now.
Yeah, Frank?
Yeah, no question. I mean, I think that's the whole thing about, you think about your role, Carol, as a CIO. If you look in the primordial swamp of how CIOs emerged, it was really bringing, the technology side of the business into the C-suite, which means that now, like, this has to be combined with like a business imperative. And that's so important, but yet you still think, in terms of like, what are, you ask an IT professional, like, what are your top, goals for this year? And they'll speak purely in terms of like, we need to migrate to Teams and we need to do these particular types of things. They still all manifest in kind of like a functional to-do list rather than, hey, like, we got to rally around, driving more customers to the table. We got to get more customers. That's what IT is challenged with. I mean, do you find, Carol, that is like a constant struggle that you have, as you reach out across, your peers at the C level, but then also down into your organization to unify this mindset?
Yeah, operational efficiency is the number one phrase I hear over and over again, because our whole paradigm has changed with the digital workspace, who's in the office, who's not, which tools are best now. So we've had to kind of put the barrel of monkeys in a cup, shake them up. But operational efficiency is the number one goal, not implement a technology.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because digital transformation is not a magic wand. You don't just wave it at something and it solves everything. So having that operational efficiency is key. What would you say is, there's a lot of uncertainty in this, right? One negative ROI DT effort could cast, uncertainty and doubt on the next one. So how do you overcome that?
Well, you have to have really a consensus building exercise first before you even start the plan. With everyone being distributed now, it's hard to get everyone connected. So that connectivity first is the issue.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed. So next topic, work and life. And we've often talked about this, do you work from home or do you live at work? And so, this whole work-life persona element, I know, Carol, that's kind of like near and dear to your heart. Why don't you kind of like, break into that a little bit?
Sure. Well, we have a office now. It's a home and it's an office. And the one thing we all had to come to terms with is be honest. I mean, I have kids and dogs usually running in the background. Daycare dried up for my little grandkids that I'm raising. So they're home with me. So the number one thing you have to do is give yourself permission to be a real person, because you're at home and you're at work. So everything's merged. And you have to give your employees permission to have everything merged, because our whole world shook upside down. So we're still effective. We're still professional, but everything's blended together. And you have to have fun, right? I mean, you still have to have fun with your team. And you have to realize that your 4K streaming Disney Plus is maybe going to conflict with your conference calls. So you kind of have to manage your home technology as well as your home coworkers, your dogs, your kids, your UPS doorbell ringer. So, it's been topsy-turvy, but you can manage through it.
Oh, Carol, can we start the day over? I'm going to change this to office instead of work plus life. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I call it the web conference mullet, right? You're on top, you're all professional, and down below you got some board shorts on. And I kind of like the idea of like the kids and animals. In fact, I think that should be the new background. Like if you don't have kids and you don't have animals, you should have a background that has kids and animals in it, immediately making you more adorable, relatable, etc. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No judgment period, but you see a lot of us like struggling to like make our background look perfect.
Right.
We got the green screen or the Zoom screen back there, trying to look somewhat professional, but really let it all down. Let that mullet out. We connect with you more when we see the dogs behind you, when we see the kids there. We just connect with you more.
Yeah.
Show us your personality, and that's okay. I think we need to emphasize a culture that is okay.
Yeah, I like the term that you use, Carol, like give yourself permission. And, even I think that comes also from a leadership and a cultural perspective as well inside of the business, is that permission-based type deal where, I think that a lot of people have been, you talk about persona, and sometimes there's an orchestrated and a simulated persona that you put out there, right? It's just no different than what we do as normal human beings in the analog world as we walk around and bump into each other, showing people what we want people to see. But I think that, like in terms of how relatable people are working together these days, the more that you can kind of break it down to, I'm just being myself, I'm getting up, I'm doing the best I can. I think that's probably, a good level of guidance for everyone.
Yeah, well said and well timed. CIO versus CISO. So there was an article that came out recently that's talking about this particularly, but it's been long known that the CIO and the CISO have kind of struggled in some regards to coexist, to find that balance. There's been some friction there. And, this one article is talking specifically, as it is Women History Month, talking about women IT leaders, how they are resetting the CIO-CISO relationship. They're resetting it. They're breaking that paradigm of CIO versus CISO, and they found a way to come together. And I thought this was a very timely and relevant timed article as well. Carol, in your experience, what have you seen being that friction point between CIO, CISO, and how do you suggest people overcome that?
Well, traditionally, the CIO and CISO came from opposite directions, right? So CISO was compliance and security. And I think there was an assumption that the CIO didn't embrace both. From my experience, the CISO has been my best friend. We work hand in hand with audits, with construction, architecture, implementation, and also to promote the value of security with the infrastructure to the executive team. So you have to have hand-in-hand partnership to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the things, when you look at IT and successful IT versus, projects that don't work well potentially, I think a lot of it really comes down to not technology being the rub. It really comes down to how people work with each other and how they're united together around that common cause. Because, I think every department in a business can run somewhat similarly, and I think IT is no exception, is that, there can be a fiefdom that emerges in there. And, people are protecting, positions and roles and, promotional paths, all those types of things. How do you ward off against that, Carol? Like, how do you set that tone as a leader to kind of blow that up?
To blow up competing objectives, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so my job is to be both a leader and an advocate for my team, for the business. So if I'm in a competitive situation right away, I've set up barriers to success. So we have to work together, and I'm their advocate to make sure they're promoted, make sure their successes are made aware, to the company's made aware of who on my team is doing what great work. So that's my responsibility as a leader, not to be in competition or to encourage competition amongst the team.
That's interesting. I like that. I like the term advocate. I remember earlier on in my career where I sat down at a job planning meeting and it was a part of a group setting, and it was myself and my direct report, and then another person who was a peer across from me. And they said, where do you want to go? And he turned to his boss and he said, I want his job. And the guy's response was amazing. He was like, thank God. He was like, and he literally, like, they put into a plan in the next 30 minutes exactly how that succession was going to work. It was insanely powerful.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yes.
Speaking of powerful.
All right. So next topic, villages apart.
Next level CIO.
Oh, next level CIO. I jumped. I'm so excited. So next level CIO. And Carol, this is you. I mean, you are the next level CIO. So we're talking about you, but you're also kind of painting a picture for, what happens when you hit that CIO level? Like, what's next for you? What do you think is the right direction, the right goal set?
Well, from experience, a lot of my peers are either going into consulting when they're out of the CIO role, or board director positions, paid board of director positions. And there's a huge frenzy right now to have technology professionals. And I'm going to say especially women right now, because they're very underrepresented on corporate boards, to have women and technology professionals on boards, because every single business in the universe relies on technology right now. So that's what I see as the next level among my peers and for myself as well.
Yeah, Carol, you said something there that's kind of near and dear to our hearts, profound. And that is, every single business requires technology right now. And that's something that we believe here at Acuerdo. I mean, not to be too beating that down, but you are either a digital company or you're not. It's something we talk about a lot.
Mm-hmm. And that not piece being like, if you don't recognize the digital componentry within inside of your business, you may be working yourself out of business. And, it's funny, like, we're simulcast right now on Clubhouse, and, participating in various different Clubhouse rooms, I've been exposed to people's stories. And I've heard a lot of ladies talking about, like, what they're trying to do, where they see impediments, where they're trying to, go past that, right? The obstacle is the way, like what stands in the way becomes the way. And so they're taking that mentality of, like, how do I get to that next level? Getting those board seats, I really learned over the last 6 months, super hypercritical in terms of, like, where people seeing their ability to be recognized as a leader, but then also to be able to provide influence across organizations. And so is that something that board seat, that director level, Carol, is that something that, like, you're focused on personally?
I am very focused on it. I've actually had people reach out to me recently, and it's really with the pandemic, you've seen a lot of businesses combine or grow in different directions, and they're discovering they have different needs. They need a broader set of skills. So I tell people, keep your LinkedIn up to date and make sure you mention that you're open to board positions on your profile. That's how the recruiters are finding you, through their searches, which are paid for by the boards. You can't just go approach a company to be a director. You have to be found.
So these boardroom companies, these board search companies, that's not really worth your effort. You have to be found. You can't really go out and find one yourself.
Correct.
Good piece of advice. And then last up, we titled this something differently, Who Moved My Cheese, but talking about villages apart. Talking about, something that you were talking about, Carol, is, when all this happened last year, I don't want to say it because we'll get flagged, but when all this stuff happened last year, your villages, everyone's village fell apart, and we're building new villages. Can you talk about this a little bit? This is something that you care about deeply.
Yes, as a Nana, mommy, and CIO, I'm raising little grandchildren out of necessity. I'm happy to do it, but my village fell apart. Daycare closed, schools closed. My dog walker, I had a dog walker. While I was home, I became the dog walker, but that had to fit in between conferences. My networking village fell apart. I was used to going to in-person events and working with peers, and everything turned to the home. So I've had to build a new village. And I'll tell you, all of our team members have had to build a new village. We didn't have the skills to do that, but you had to really quickly, from March 16th of last year till about April 15th, I had to restructure my village. And that's included family members, distant and near. and peers that I hadn't worked with previously in such a relationship. But we've all had to build new villages, and that's put a lot of pressure on our team members. We need to recognize that it goes back to that persona. Give yourself permission to have a new village.
You're really kind of talking about the loss of a support system, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's that's pretty profound, because I mean, people have had to kind of like rewire how their world works, and it's funny. I think well, not funny, but like when initially all of this occurred, there was very much like this temporary nature. Everybody thought like, well, this is something we need to do for the next 3 or 4 months, and here we are a year plus later, and really kind of the prospects of that changing still being kind of pushed out. Like every month we go, something new's happening. We're going to be living with this new paradigm. It's now the current paradigm. It's right. So if you look at reworking that, how did you go about doing that completely? Was that just a lot of research you had to do, or did you reach out to contacts that you had that maybe were part of your original village to ask how they're reconstructing their world?
Yeah, well, I leverage my digital platforms. I'm on Parent Square for the children's elementary school. I reached out through our neighborhood site next door to find sitters to just come to my house when I was on a Zoom call that was going to last for a long period of time. And, I needed help keeping track of the kids because I couldn't be on the Zoom calls with peers and do both. So it was striking a balance. It was reaching out to new local resources and obviously being safe. I mean, people wore masks in my own home.
Yeah. Well, villages apart.
It definitely is. Villages apart. So awesome. So this concludes our show. And Carol, we couldn't be happier to have you on board and to hear your wisdom and your kind of foresight in terms of like where you see things going. For all those listening, definitely feel free to text DBX to 512-790-7226. You'll get updates and alerts to when we're going live and to when content's being published out. And so, Carol, we want to thank you so much. Any parting thoughts in terms of, before we complete out on the show?
I love what you're doing. This is really broadening the digital world for all of us. So thank you for including me.
Now, that's not to say you're going to wake up one day and say, we've arrived, we've adapted. It's a constant struggle and a constant battle to continuously adapt.
We've adapted. We're there.
Here.
Yeah,
that doesn't exist.
Well, there's a great saying that kind of builds on what you just mentioned, which is like, how do you open up a small business? You open up a big one and wait.